So I see a resurgence in videos trying to figure out how to get young men back in the church, and I want to put my 2 cents in. The first thing is I'm going to start with the pastors. There's so many issues with your average pastor as it pertains to their walk, how they express themselves, how they show themselves, how they represent themselves to the men in the community, as well as to the men who are in church and who have come through their church. So many pastors have this air about them as if they've completed the journey, as if they've completed the race, and they're not still walking with God. And that goes for literally everybody in the church that's like an old head. But at the same time, there are a lot of ministers who don't act as if they're still presently living life and still dealing with things. That makes them unapproachable. And because they act like they finished the race, whenever they do slip up and show that human side of things, it invalidates and discredits everything they've done, because you gave me the inclination based off your actions and your conversation that you had it all figured out and you were perfect. As if you had never sinned after you got saved and that you won't sin again because you got it together. You and God so close that you got it together. And then now you just slipped up and failed, and we find out that this whole time you've been lying to us. So of course not. Of course I'm not going to come back to this church. I'm not going to trust anybody else because I believed in who you were as a person and you lied to me. The second thing is the church is not a safe space for men. In no capacity is the church a safe space, because any place where a woman can hear the troubles and trials of a man and have them at her disposal to throw them back at him at any other time is not a safe space. Any place where a man can't fully express his thoughts and be heard as a man is not a safe space. That's why people talk about we need to get back to the barbershop, because the barbershop used to be a safe space. You could go in there and say your little stupid idea and your little half put together manifesto, and somebody will correct you, because not, oh, you're stupid and you're less than human and you're worthless. It's because I've been where you at and it don't get you nowhere. And to be honest, a lot of biblical teaching from the older guys in the barbershop who actually knew the Lord would occur there, because they would not only tell you, hey man, this ain't gonna work out for you, but they would also throw in the Bible says, and you wouldn't want to hear it, but you'd hear it regardless. So the church isn't a safe space for men. The third thing is a lot of people who grew up in church are now leading church. And because they're leading church, they have no real life experience because they've never done anything other than church. And I'm not saying you got to go out here and live and be riotous and do evil and sin and all those other kind of things. But what I will say is, if a person left high school and immediately became a pastor, you don't know what it's like to go to your job and hate your job. You can't give me any advice on that. And a lot of times they don't want to defer to the word intrinsically. They want to refer to the word when it fits, when it has those little colloquialisms that you can just splash and throw and stuff like abracadabra, instead of them actually being honest and saying, I don't know, let's go to the word. They don't use the word as the foundation anymore. They use the word as a reference. They use the word as, oh, this is what it says, so I'm going to just build off that on my own little platform, instead of being like, hey, this is what the word says, so this is what it means, and that is what it is. And a lot of young men that I've talked to and the ones that have started coming to my Bible study have talked about how come when we go through the Bible in my Bible study, we don't skip any verses. We go verse by verse, and if it confuses you, if it makes you feel bad, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, we talk about it, right? Churches don't do that. Churches want you to make sure that you're happy. Make sure that you feel good as you go through the week. Some weeks you should leave church feeling bad about yourself because you're trash. Some weeks you should leave church feeling like, dang, I need to do better. You shouldn't always feel like a pat on the back when you come from church. And churches have become encouragement centers. And a lot of men realize that it's all air. It's nothing to it. There's no substance to that. That didn't help me through the week. I still got to go back and deal with these people that I've been dealing with all week, because you didn't give me anything to help build my character. You gave me something. You put a Band-Aid over it, but I'm still bleeding. And that's for the churches that actually preach. We're not even talking about the feel-good centers where the pastor's a dude who never got girlfriends and never had any kind of play when he was younger, became a pastor, and now he's trying to get all of his quote-unquote just due from society in that position. Just living up in the lap of luxury as people buy him stuff and make him food and invite him over and make sure he good and pay his wages and all kinds of stuff. But they have no real gumps to them. They have no oomph to them because they're not serious. Another thing, transparency in the church. I get it. You don't necessarily have to tell me where every dollar goes. But as a man, especially a working man, me, myself, you're not going to tell me that if I know how bills are paid, I know what costs what, I know how things work in society, you're not going to tell me that all these people paying all this money and we're not seeing any improvements in the facilities. We're not seeing any upgrades to what we got going on. We can't keep a piano player because y'all can't pay him. But we paying all this money every Sunday. And I use myself as an example. I pay my tithes every 2 weeks, right? I know for a fact that the money that I put in for my tithes, because of how much I make on my salary, is enough to cover what you would be paying a musician that plays piano at any church, because I used to be a musician. I know how much they make. But we can't keep a piano player because you don't want to pay them. And I said the last thing is the ability to partner somebody or partner with somebody within the church, right? One of the things that Pastor Lee Bram out of Bartlett, Tennessee, he was in Starkville when I was in college, and he preached at Bethel, and now he's at Faith Baptist in Bartlett. He told us when we went through his discipleship program, he was like, hey, man, I want y'all to make sure y'all find an accountability partner within this group. Find somebody you can partner with, that you could chop it up with, that they know you, you know them, and y'all can rub off on each other. When you going through it, no judgment zone. This is what's going on with me. I need your help. You don't find a lot of churches that offer those types of opportunities because the people who typically go to churches are not good enough people for that. And if the Bible says you will know them by their fruit, and the fruit that's in the building is rotting and stinking, then obviously that church ain't where it's at. And that comes back on the leadership. So ultimately, there needs to be more of a push for people to be able to partner within the church, specifically men, because we're the ones who bear the brunt of responsibility when it comes to the spirituality of your home, when it comes to the spirituality of society, when it comes to protecting and serving, when it comes to understanding how we need to be leading everybody in our groups. We are the ones who have to deal with that. But if there is nowhere for us to speak, nowhere for us to vent, nowhere for us to talk, nowhere for us to learn, nowhere for us to grow, then we're just going to keep spiraling out of control. I've brought in multiple men, young men within my Bible study. I would say the ratio of men to women in my Bible study, and these are unmarried dudes as well, is somewhere in the realm of, it's about 50-50 male to female. Actually, it's a little bit over. It's probably about 75% male, and I say right at 30% female. I know that's over 100, but I'm just doing some rough math in my head and it's not really working out. And those dudes are unmarried. One of them was in the midst of going through a divorce. And I sat and talked to them outside of the Bible study. I made myself available at the gym where I met them to talk to them one-on-one on some realistic type stuff. And I'm not even a pastor. I'm not a preacher. It's just, I'm a person. If you ask me a biblical question, it burns me up if I don't know. It burns me up if I can't give you an answer that at least brings you some sense of understanding, or at least you'll be like, all right, cool. That ain't what I thought it was. I'm gonna walk away from it, right? But I make myself available to talk to them because I'm not their leader. I'm a friend. I'm a bro. I'm a partner. We there together. We learning together. Sometimes they teach me stuff. Other times I teach them stuff. Sometimes they challenge me because this is what they heard. Let's go to the book. And anybody who comes to my Bible study, or if you ever meet somebody who comes to my Bible study, it's a small Bible study, so you probably won't. They will tell you, I say, all right, what does the word say? Let me look at what the Bible says instead of me giving you Chris's advice, because I know I'm flawed. I know I'm a person who's lived life. I have these emotional scars. I have these thorns in my side. I have all this built up angst and stuff towards different things because of the experiences and the things that I put myself through. And a lot of times when you try to have those types of conversations and stuff at church, you get looked at like you're a freak. But how else would a person who was in the streets be able to come in unless they have somebody there willing to accept and love them for who they are and then work with them through the stuff that they're going through? The unfortunate reality is church does that for women. Church does that for women because there are more women in churches than there are men. There's more women doing things in churches than there are men. And that's not an indictment on the women of the church. That's also, again, an indictment on the men. Men come to church and they wait till they done did all their energetic, crazy stuff in the streets. They come to church to sit down and relax, pastors included. But a lot of times when men who come to church start to tell about their experiences and the decisions that they made and how they found their way to Christ, they get ostracized because, whoa, we weren't expecting that. Oh, you was out there like that. You did that. Oh, my God. All that to say, it's a lot more stuff than that. Those are just kind of the biggest pieces. I know this video is way too long. It probably should have been a YouTube video. But unfortunately, we are what we are. Here it is. And y'all do with that information what you will.